we didn't actually have that many interviews. And the whole reason was because so many people didn't actually respond. They didn't actually respond. And if they did respond to set up an interview, they didn't show up to the interview.
I understand that the military is looking at hiring probably 4 to 500,000 trades folks within the next few years.
Wow.
That's gonna be a serious competition. In my mind, like this light bulb comes up as oh, okay, we gotta buy some more caulking and duct tape, right? Because that's what you gotta do when you don't have the money.
When you think about how many technicians, when you're on site and you ask them, well, why do you do X that way? And they say, oh, because Bill taught me that way. And then you go to Bill and you're like, hey, Bill, why do you do X that way? And he's like, oh, because John taught me that way. And you go, well, where does the company come into the picture? Like, where is our operating procedure?
I wanted to say that, this is one of the most hated things by the maintenance community. All the groups, all the platforms that I'm going to, this is kind of like the joke of the day. Hey, Nick, welcome to the show. This was a long time coming.
Hey, good morning, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start a little bit with your history. Tell me about your history in property management, how long you've been in a space in multifamily, and how long you've been doing maintenance for.
Interesting. I've only worked for one organization, the group I'm with now. I've been there for 21 years now. Started there as a technician at a nice size property, 304 units. And came in very mechanically minded, had always, from a young guy, had always worked on things, always taken things apart, put them back together, worked on cars, all of that kind of stuff. So it kind of naturally fell into this role, just loved it. But what I really loved was working with people and talking with people and really helping fix problems. And so anyway, long story short there, I kind of quickly moved into a leadership role there at that property, started moving around, going to other properties. What I kind of found was that I was the one that was quick to raise my hand to go and fix the issues. If there were problems at other properties, I was totally fine with that. I liked it. I enjoyed going and cleaning things up or getting things back on track. And so that kind of earned me into more leadership roles over the years. And so I've overseen the landscape department in our group. I've been just the residential maintenance supervisor. And then now my current role is director of maintenance. And that includes overseeing, right now our portfolio is around 2,000 multifamily units and just shy of 1 million square feet of commercial space.
Percentage wise, how much would you say this initiative of yours, right? Volunteering for things, raising your hand, saying, hey, I want to volunteer, I want to help right here, contributed to your career and where you are today?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I don't think that I would have been recognized along the way without doing that. It's still something that stands out to me today. When I see that amongst technicians today, it's just it's a great quality. Look for it all the time. You don't see it all the time. So when you do see it, it stands out.
Definitely does. So how many years have you been a technician before you stepped up into the next role? Was it a service manager role, by the way?
It was. Yeah, I was a technician for right around 2 years, and then I was our group calls it a lead maintenance technician, but it's a service manager comparatively with the industry. I did that for about a year and a half, just shy of 2 years, and kind of bounced all over the place at other sites doing that. At that point was really there was an opening, there was an opportunity to lead a landscape department that was very interesting. I showed interest in that. It was a huge challenge. That was a group of 23 people, and running a department that I had a small amount of knowledge doing, but the biggest skill I had was I had an ability to lead. I had an ability to group people together and just we could get to an end goal. So that was kind of recognized, and through that really turned that whole department around, put all kinds of SOPs in place, really just changed the efficiencies all the way around. All of those systems are still in place today. From back then, that was nearly 15 years ago. So,
Is this ability to lead something that you're born with, something that you develop, or is a combination of both?
I've wondered that too, and I just don't know. I used to think for a long time that you could train anyone anything. And over the years, I've started to question that a bit more because I have watched technicians be pushed into roles that they just maybe weren't trained properly for, or maybe they just weren't ready for. And I think it's a bit unfair almost to the technician to push them too quickly into things like that. And so I guess to answer that, I've kind of thought over the years more that I think that you can learn leadership. It's completely something we're not born. I think that you learn it, but I do think that there's natural parts of us that it's funny. I think if you put a group of people at a table around, we've all seen this. Like you go to a conference, you go anywhere, and you just put people at a round table. There's always like a couple of people that just naturally just kind of gravitate towards being the ones who take charge, or who not really charge, but they lead the group. And I think that that's kind of more what I look for, is not necessarily I think we look for that and then we build on that, is what I would say.
It's very interesting. I think you're right. You're totally right that we develop those qualities, but also you could tell like who the leaders are in the room when you put someone, when you put a number of people at the table, then you could kind of see who takes initiative, who's the conversation starter, who says let's go, right? Out of
Yeah.
them in each room. So I'm curious, when you interview service manager candidates, what are the things that you're looking for? What are some traits that you're looking for to determine, or like not to determine, to predict that they will be successful, they have a bigger chance of succeeding in their job?
Well, in today's world, today's market, I think the first thing is just being punctual, showing up on time, being professional, your image, courteous, just the basic things coming into the management office or wherever we're having the interview, professionally. That goes a long way, and you'd be surprised how many technicians that we talk with that right off the bat, that's just not there. Yeah. The second thing I would say is eagerness to learn. Whether you are skilled or whether you're an entry level technician, you have to constantly be open to learning new things, learning new procedures. Because even our group, I mean, we have seasoned technicians. We have long tenure for a lot of our folks, and we don't ever stop. We are constantly putting out new procedures, new policies, new ways of doing things, and so you have to be open minded to that. And the last thing is just the number one thing that we usually talk about is that mechanical aptitude. Even entry level technicians, the one of the biggest things that I would say is, talk about the questions of, do you enjoy tinkering with things? Do you enjoy taking things apart, seeing how they work? Do you enjoy putting things back together? Did you ever work on cars? Did you ever repair things at your parents' house? You know, if they haven't done this work directly, try to find the things that they may have done along the way that were mechanical. And if they're answering no to all of these things, mm, it's a rough. This is going to be you're starting at ground zero, and it's a rough foundation to start building from. Versus if someone's like, oh yeah, I've always kind of like enjoyed all these things, and they start listing all those things off, you already know that they have that personality, that they're gonna naturally be drawn to this type of work.
Yeah, you're thinking that the past behavior is the best predictor for future behavior, right? So they haven't shown an interest in the past. Why should they show an interest right now, going forward,
Exactly. Yeah.
i-
Right. Right.
into technical work?
And
Uh,
we only get this small window. These interview sessions are, an hour to, it might be, if it's long, it's 2 hours. I mean, you're getting this small window, and you're really trying to maximize. how much you're getting to know this person, how much you're trying to grab onto these little cues and key details. And so, yeah, I think your question is very spot on. You have to go into these knowing exactly what you're looking for.
When it comes to the current labor market, I'm not sure what does it look like in your area, but what I'm seeing just from outside looking in, right? Just I'll say is the general market condition. There's a new reality that changes all the time, like it changes, and I think the pool of talent shrinks and has been shrinking for the over 2 decades that I've been around, that I've been in a industry. Are you seeing the same thing in areas where you're looking for talent?
Yeah, especially in the last 5 years. I'll start by saying I'm not as experienced at this with being in constant check with the labor market as a lot of folks. We're very blessed with a low turnover rate here. In this 2025 year, we saw an 8% turnover rate in our maintenance department. So I mean, we're really we don't have a lot of experience hiring. And so that I would preface it with saying, I just don't, we're not constantly out there in touch with it. But what I do see when we are, it seems like what we're seeing is there's a lot more people are responding, but they're not real. They're not actually interested in the work. They're not actually interested in the job. And that I know that's been going on for a couple of years, but it seems like we just filled a position in Phoenix, and we saw more of it than ever. We had for one technician position, we had over 100 candidates, and it still took us over 2 months to fill the role with 100 candidates. We didn't actually have that many interviews, and the whole reason was because so many people didn't actually respond. They didn't actually respond, and if they did respond to set up an interview, they didn't show up to the interview. It's just shocking, I guess, what's going on out there in the hiring market.
I think there's also incentivized behavior. You might say, how is this incentivized? I believe the incentive is I want to be on unemployment, right? And in order to keep my unemployment benefits, the state requires that I show proof of applying for so many jobs a month, every
Yeah,
month. And I think probably a good part, good percentage of those candidates is that candidates that actually are on unemployment, their main goal is to extend those benefits versus like finding a job, getting back into the labor market, and all they really need to do to keep their unemployment benefits is to apply for whatever the requirement is and just show proof that we tried. Like, look, I've applied for so many jobs, but I didn't get any, right?
mhm,
Because the
yeah,
state does not have the capability to like go and say, okay, but did you get any response? Like, they don't go so detailed. So they're just checking, a box or a couple of boxes, and they keep getting paid.
yeah. It's unfortunate. Yeah, especially when, there are good jobs in our industry that are needing to be filled. And yeah, it's just so hard to find qualified people. Even I shouldn't say qualified people, it's just hard to find, you know, that particular role was an entry level position. It was just there wasn't a long list of duties, I shouldn't say duties of required skill set that was there. So yeah, it's definitely more challenging. I would say it seems like over the years, it's been a bit of a pendulum with this. I went through the '08, '09 crisis, and I remember, the other side of this where I could put out an ad and I would have to shut it off in 2 days because I was so flooded with applicants, I couldn't field them all. Like, I couldn't wade through all of them. I mean, there were hundreds in my inbox. And so I've seen the other side, and I do think that while we may have swung pretty far here, I just don't think it'll go this way forever. I think eventually it will correct and we'll go back to somewhat more of a normal place with hiring.
I think right here, I'm gonna bring the other side of the argument and what I'm seeing and hearing, right, which is not in line with with your prediction. But I want to talk this through because I'm interested in your opinion. Have you talked to your competitors in like Phoenix area? You just mentioned the example in Phoenix. Have you told to your competitors, or have you shopped them? Are you in line like with what you're offering for salary and benefits? Was it a difference between what your comps will offer versus your company, your package?
So I don't reach out directly. I generally just we'll go through Indeed, we'll go through, the different hiring boards, and we'll just do a survey. We'll look for the same keywords that we're going to use, and we'll just see where's our pay rate going to fit in amongst our competitors. We generally will do that a few times a year, like whether we're hiring or not. We'll just go through and just see in all of our markets, where are we with our pay rates. In the Phoenix market, we were kind of right in the middle. We weren't in the lowest end. We weren't the highest. We were mid to upper range. But at the same time, it is broad because one of the things that we use with our and this kind of gets into titles. And in the industry, we have a broad definition with our titles. And so that's another thing I think that kind of gets a little confusing with the pay rates when you try to compare. You have to really kind of get into the descriptions a bit and see what the duty requirements are. But yes, to answer your question, we do surveys and we look at how we compare. We always do that generally before we put an ad out.
It's a nice surprise to hear this because most of the folks that I told to, they don't have a system like that, right? To just say, hey, before we place an ad, we need to understand. We do a survey to understand where we stand, right? Are we upper market, lower? Where are we
Yeah.
situated? What I'm seeing though on my end, there's a number of things, and I'll say one of the things is that there's competing industries with ours, especially for like you just mentioned, like a fairly entry level position, right? There's a lot of demands now from the government. I understand that the military is looking at hiring probably 4 to 500,000 trades folks within the next few years.
Wow.
That's going to be a serious competition for it. Well, that is currently, and it's going to become even like a more serious competitor for the apartment industry. Because when we're looking at entry level like folks, some that have an intention like doing something with their hands where they're mechanically inclined, it's kind of the same, the same. I guess I will call it for to sell ICP, ideal customer profile. So
Hmm.
us as a industry versus the military, we're looking at the same people, right? It's not so big of a difference when you're looking at the entry level because you just need to looking at someone that actually wants to do technical work, maybe hopefully have like some basic skills. So that's just one. Another one is there's a tremendous increase of data centers because they're needed for the expansion of the AI technology. I just happened to watch a documentary. This was just a couple of weeks ago, and they were mentioning out there that some of the largest data centers from the AI data centers in the country, they're in Arizona.
Hmm.
So when you're building, millions of dollars worth of square foot of facilities, they're gonna have to be maintained. They had to stay cool all the time. Like that's a non-negotiable. The AC's got to run all the time. Everything has to run all the time in order to keep those servers at a certain temperature in order for them to operate. So you're going to be competing if you aren't already, you probably are already, right, with those businesses as well. And those are just a few, not to mention right trades like HVAC companies, electrical companies, um, plumbing companies. All of those combined, they add up to a lot. And then just for just if we're to be complete honest, as a general rule, right? I don't know your particular situation there, but as a general rule, they tend to pay their pay tends to be superior to what our industry pays.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, those are all great points, and I think that the tech center thing that's a very big one. And I did not know about this, the government, the military side. That's something I'd love to look into because yeah, those are giant numbers. So that'll be a major impact to our industry. when, I mean, I'm sure that already is. So,
This episode is brought to you by Appwork, the maintenance platform built by operators for operators. If your work order system is slowing you down, it's time for a change. Appwork helps you streamline operations, boost tech efficiency, and track everything in real time. Smarter tools, better results. Check them out at appworkco.com.
one of the other things that I know been the ongoing thing that we've talked about for a long time is just the retirement factor, and that we have more retirement age technicians that are coming into retirement season than we do new technicians coming into, expressing interest in coming into the industry. And that's another thing that I think is going to feed into this as well. So yeah, so all of these things, you're painting a bit of a darker future than I would hope for, but I hope that one of the things that is a maybe a hidden light in all this is that historically, I do think that the pay rates have not they've been in the low side for our industry, and I think that this all of these things will force those pay rates up. So when these things all start to come to fruition and hit the market, I think that you will start to it. You'll have to see the pay rates come up in order to entice technicians back.
You mentioned the older, I'll say, generation. Probably, we have to say, it's we're talking about Gen X, right? The older Gen X
Hmm.
are retiring, or maybe not completely retiring, but maybe transitioning into jobs that are less physical demanding. And a thing that comes to mind, and that's a very real phenomenon, I should say. When they retire, we as an industry, we're losing legacy knowledge. What are you thinking of? How are you thinking about us capturing some of that legacy knowledge as these folks are walking out into the sunset, or they're just they're moving on from the industry? Like, how do we prevent like losing all that knowledge, like walking out the door one with them physically?
Hmm. Hmm. A great question, because anybody who has been around a group of maintenance techs, when you get us all in a room and we all start sharing our war stories together, the amount of knowledge and the tricks of the trade that come out, I can hear stories. I can hear stories all the time that I'm shocked. I'm like, I'm never heard about doing that way, and it's just so neat to hear. And so one of the things that we've done in our group is, being a smaller company, I don't necessarily have the resources to have a full-time maintenance trainer dedicated to a role like this. But I got a little creative with that, and we had one of our supervisors was one of the people who was constantly raising his hand saying, let me help with this, let me help with this, and was undertaking a lot of projects. And so at one point he started helping put together and improve SOPs. And so we were able to put together a little program where he is now our part-time, essentially he's half-time maintenance trainer. And it's one of the better things that we've done. And if anybody's considering doing something like this, it's not a huge overhead cost, but it's helped us so much. One of our goals was to kind of move away from the culture. When you think about how many technicians, when you're on site and you ask them, well, why do you do X that way? And they say, oh, because Bill taught me that way. And then you go to Bill and you're like, hey, Bill, why do you do X that way? And he's like, oh, because John taught me that way. And it's this like never ending chain of this person taught me that way. And you go, well, where does the company come into the picture? Like, where is our operating procedure? And so that was really when that's the culture that we're trying to break. Like we're trying to break that. We're trying to make it more of a centralized direction of when we find a great process of a way to do something, we write it down, we make it our standard. And until there's a better way that we find, that's the way. That's the way we teach, that's the way we train, that's our standard, that's the way everybody does it. And that doesn't mean that we're not open-minded to change. At any point, if somebody comes along and says, "You know what? I've been doing it this way, but if we do it this other way, I've noticed X, Y, and Z gets just a little better." We'll go test that, and if it works, that's the new way, and that rolls out, and that's our new. We'll do training on it, and that's the new way. But it's kind of that's been our program for several years now, and I would say there's a lot of value in doing that because it helps with the same issue you're talking about. It takes the tricks, all that knowledge, the tricks of the trade, and it puts it pen to paper, and you start to actually have SOPs for all your processes. And so when you do lose these amazing skilled people, when they start to go and do their next season in life and enjoy the retirement time, you're not panicking, and you're not kind of going, what happened, and turning around going, "Well, how are we going to take care of things?" Because you've already been working with them long enough, and you put it down, and now you've got a standard that you've shared. So that's a little thing that we've been doing. It's helped a ton.
When you were describing all of this, in my mind, the light bulb came on, and I'm saying this is a playbook. What they're doing right here, they're basically writing a playbook to
Hmm.
where everybody refers to the playbook, the company playbook, and that's incredible, right? Because everybody, like, this is your new standard right now. Another thing, another I see challenge that we kind of having to scaling that knowledge is the fact that your trainer could only be in one place at one time, right? So it's hard to replicate a physical presence. So I think right here that technology comes into place and could play an incredible role. I've uh, I've worked with a client recently that they didn't have a playbook. They had someone that was with a company for close to 3 decades, right? Someone that knew all of their assets inside and out, right? The mechanics, the facilities, high rise, mid rise, garden style, where the shelves are. And I asked the individual, I said, where is this information housed? He said, it's in here. Okay.
Mm.
And then my first reaction was like, this is a significant liability for your organization because things do happen with people.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
not everybody is eternal. Like you might, God forbid, get sick, or you need vacation. You need a break, or then eventually, like we're talking about, you get to retire. So what do you do when this person is not around anymore? The person that has so much information that they're worth their weight in gold. So what I proposed to my client was basically what you could do. You could take this gentleman to pair with each like lead technician or service manager at each property, give them a tour like they gave me to a couple of their assets, and then show them around. And while they're doing that, record something on a camera. Could be something as simple of like a $200 GoPro camera, because you have now the ability, while you're capturing the video and audio, you have the ability to drop that video file into a ChatGPT AI engine of sort, and that turns into knowledge that translates into like SOPs, and you actually don't just build like legacy knowledge, you build legacy knowledge specific to each asset, right? Because it's one thing when we say we're going to do like a class on a heat pump, and it's generic principles how heat pumps work, versus we gonna train on a a Goodman heat pump because that's what we have at so and so
Hmm.
property. or it could be like, next door, it could be like a train one or brand or whatever brand. If you capture that specific information, right, for that particular property, this becomes incredibly and increasingly more valuable because it has information specific to that particular asset versus just a generic like the principles of trading.
Yeah. So what you're talking about with the AI side and doing so that's that whole thing. I will say I am a bit behind on the abilities and the capabilities of what we can do with all of that. So would love to hear more about that too. So that's
It's
very interesting what you're saying.
yeah, it's definitely here, Nick. Like I rely, right? I use AI a lot, like from helping me write emails or meeting summaries. It's kind of like a um, executive assistant for me that does everything like within seconds. Even when I look at, for example, troubleshooting, right? Imagine like taking your phone and looking at the wiring situation, like not a diagram, but you're looking at some wiring that you're not great with diagrams or you don't have a diagram at all. Snapping a picture, right? And just drop it into ChatGPT saying, I have the situation. I believe it's a wiring problem here. Can you walk me through what it could be wrong with it? You'll be amazed how often ChatGPT actually walks you through legit steps of solving the issue.
Really.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and you have to think about ChatGPT is just like a large learning model.
Mhm.
Imagine when you build something that's customized, right? That doesn't just take information from the entire internet, some of it not being vetted, right? Let's just admit it's not vetted. So that also could create like a situation of AI hallucinating, right? Providing information is not accurate. But imagine training it, there's the next generation out there, AI agents, they're trained to literally just pull the specific and the vetted information from the internet and basically deliver it to you at your fingertips. I think that in the future, we will be heavily relying on those type of tools because in all reality, the human solution it's not scalable when it comes to training, right? Again, as I was saying, having a trainer that has to cover 10 or 20 sites, like
Mhm.
it can be in all places at all times, right? And technology would be something that will be as a complementary resource on top of what you already built, like your playbook.
Yeah. And I think one of the really nice things about it is that it sounds like, the on-demand feature, just being able to pull up those resources on at your fingertips on demand. That that I think from a technician standpoint, that's going to be very valuable.
You said it very well, when you said on demand, right? But it's in a conversational way, right?
Yeah.
When you work with AI agents, it's like a combination with a human back and forth, right? So instead, let's just say you're taking the route of micro learning, right? Micro learning being 5 to 7 minute videos of sorts, right? They're showing you how to, right? How to replace, I don't know, a capacitor. So you gotta watch the entire video to walk you through the entire situation. What if you don't need the entire video? You just need like parts of that video. YouTube is not searchable that way, right? For the most part. So the better solution here is, having that AI agent that you're actually conversating with. They could like compress that, 3 to 5 minute time to like 1 or 2 minutes or 30 seconds, right? So it's conversational. It's just like
Hmm.
having a training buddy which you following you in your pocket all over the place while you're doing the work.
Right. Yeah. No, that sounds very interesting. I'd love to see. Sounds like that technology. It's already well on its way. It sounds like.
It's yeah, technology does exist now. whether it's like built for multifamily, like I describe it,
Hmm.
I think more or less, right? Because there's a lot of product out there that helps, right? Helps maintenance teams, and sometimes it's a combination between like a call center that uses AI to help. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
it's just pure AI. Sometimes it's like AI tools plugged into a current like PMS or whatever. But I think more and more people, the more people will like work with this type of assistance, companies that are like ahead of the curve will realize that the most efficient way, like to get the information, to get it out, it's conversational better than everything else, right? Because that's when you think about we as humans, right? Why do we crave this in-person training? Because you could watch the person doing it, you could actually ask them questions and they'll like show you, right? Well, this AI tool, this AI agent will do basically everything that a human that a human does. They're just not human.
Right.
And also you have the scalability, right? Because you don't have to like wait for the physical person to be at your site or to be available so you could call them, so or you could do like a FaceTime. You have them in your
Hmm.
pocket and you carry them with
Hmm.
you everywhere around.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I love it.
You made me very curious about that 8% turnover rate. So let's dig deeper into why just 8%. So what are some things that you think you guys do right to have this 8%? And reason why I'm asking is that what I'm hearing, right? And you're not gonna see that in official data, right? Because most companies, when the numbers are so abysmal, most companies they just won't admit to it, right? The numbers I'm referring to are turnover rates in the 80s and 90%.
Wow.
And we're not talking about a isolated incident. I have this on good note, of course, offline from leaders that work for very large operators. I'm talking about top 10 or 20 in the United
Hmm.
States. So you're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of units. And
Yeah.
their turnover rates are in the 80s or 90%. So you're a tenth of that. Tell me how you do it.
I think that there is no magic bullet for this. I think that it's totally it's 100 things. I mean, it's your big picture. I think it comes down to the biggest thing I think that you have to have is the culture that you have within your company and in your team, that you care about your people, that you care about their futures here, that you actually that you're listening to them, that you communicate with them, that their feedback matters. You're that you're consistently giving pay increases. Um, I think that there's a lot of things that feed into that. One of the things that we're also we're an owner operator. We are very stable. We don't our properties don't change hands. They generally most of our properties have been in our portfolio for decades. And so that also helps. I understand especially the fee-based third party side, when you're changing properties, I understand it's like the teams are going to move around, things are going to happen, there's going to be adjustments all the time. And so that all adds complexities that are going to feed into those turnover rates. And so I would say that it's not necessarily that I can't say that we're just doing something magical. I just think that I think we have a lot of there's a lot of really, there's some blessings here in our um, owner side. They listen to us, they give us the resources we need, and then we also spend a lot of time hiring right. That's the other thing that I would say is that, like I talked about with that Phoenix hire, we don't generally just jump into our hires. Like we will spend the time, and I know that that's costly, but we will spend the time to vet out our incoming people and make sure that they're the people that we think are going to fit well within our team long term. So that's one of the other things that we really look for is this person looking for a long term fit, or do we think we're just a short term step for them? So.
I'm gonna argue that what you're doing is like way less costly than turning over 9 out of 10 employees every year. Way less
Yeah,
costly.
yeah. It's amazing when you sit down and start to think about what it costs for the turnover. I mean, it's so expensive.
Incredibly expensive, especially when you operate at scale. I want to tell you about our new sponsor, iRestify. Property managers, here's the truth. Happy residents stay longer, and clean properties create happy residents. That's exactly what iRestify does. They specialize in multifamily cleaning and maintenance services that keep your residents happy and buildings pristine. They handle everything from common areas to turnovers. iRestify provides fully vetted professional cleaning teams and uses its proprietary platform to remotely monitor, schedule, and manage cleaning and maintenance operations across property portfolios. You get proof of service, quality inspections, and resident satisfaction reports all through one easy app. Visit iRestify.com to see why so many multifamily pros are switching to iRestify. So typically when a position becomes available within your org, how long does it take to fill it back up?
Really it depends on the region. So the bulk of our portfolio is in Vancouver, Washington. And so in our Vancouver portfolio, one of the things that we try to do, we're very big on promoting from within. And so that's one of the behind the scenes success stories here, is that many of our folks started, we're almost like a Costco type of model, where it's like many of our people started doing something, three tiers lower, and they just worked their way up. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is, so we have a couple of positions that are um, porters, or what we call rovers. Common in the industry, you call them porters, and just very entry level kind of manual labor type of work, pressure washing, cleaning, just property general maintenance. But when we hire for those, one of the things that I preach a lot is, I say, when we're hiring for the rover team, we need to try to hire as the next lead technician. So put the effort in that team at that hire, because you're essentially stacking the deck. Every time when we hire right there, those people are ready, and it just makes sense. They already know all the properties, they know our staff, they're committed, they're ready to go. They're already trained. They're just, it's so quick and fast and easy. And one of the things that we found is that, it's just so much more efficient to promote people and train them and move them into roles than when you hire outside and you're starting at ground zero. It's just so much harder, and the risk factor is so much higher that they're not going to work out. And so, and it's just so much easier when you do hire, to put someone into a more entry level position, because it's just, you're not starting with a larger skill set that's a requirement. And so that's one of the things that we really focus on, is the promoting from within. I know that doesn't work everywhere. That's the where we have more properties in one location that works. To answer your original question, in this area, for those positions, I would say it's been, we did a couple of those. I would say it was probably in the 3-week, 4-week range. The more remote properties, we haven't done anything in Boise in the last year, anything in Medford, so only Phoenix, and that was the one that we spoke about, 2.5 months. So
So, from all the markets that you're in, which one would you say is like the easiest for you? Which one is the hardest?
easiest is in the Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Washington market for us. Hardest most recently was Phoenix. I don't know that that was historically the case. several years back, we didn't. Phoenix, it's just such a large city. We didn't have those same struggles then, but it was definitely more complicated this time.
You and I had a email exchange, right? Just recently, we did. We picked the topic of branding for the leadership council, and you share some things very passionately, I should say, right, about your experience, the experience you had with Mark Taylor so many years ago that really marked you. Like you're talking about something that you've been exposed to like 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
you're still writing about it, talking about it so uh, passionately. So I want to give you the opportunity to maybe share some things. Why maintenance should be included in the company brand, or why should maintenance be the brand for a property management company?
Well, if you think about, you know, once a resident moves in, all of all of that effort to get them into the door, to get them to sign that lease, uh, the majority of that effort was through the management leasing team. There you could argue there's a portion of that that's curb appeal, and there's a portion of that that is just the overall online presence and reviews and maintenance feeds into some of all that. But once they're in, the majority of their interactions are going to shift, and it's going to become primarily maintenance, because in today's world everybody's going to pay online. It's very rare they're going to go in the office for much. There are going to be some, but majority of our tenants are residents are they're going to put in their work order requests online. They're going to email in conversations. Most of it is pretty virtual based with management post move in, or phone calls maybe. But with the human interaction, maintenance is still going to be very, very involved all throughout the life cycle of that resident living on site. And so if maintenance is that connected, why are we not talking about this more in the industry, about how vital and how important this is? And I know we talk about, you'll hear the term maintenance as a brand, like you'll as an amenity. Maintenance is an amenity. You'll hear this term. But
You
I
also
don't.
hear that the maintenance is the backbone of
Yeah.
our company, and the sad reality, I should say, right, for the record, on the record, I should say, the saddest part is that you only hear that from people that don't have much to show for when it comes to like actually doing something for maintenance. Not that
Yeah.
they are part of the maintenance, but higher ups, like folks higher ups, that are just reciting this code. Maintenance is the
Mhm.
backbone of our thing. And if I was to follow up and say, could you actually give me some examples of things that you have done for your maintenance teams, for your department? You'll be I'm even probably like avoiding the subject, just like shaking my head and saying, every time I hear this, it's just like I'm hearing someone that suffers. There's no budget at the property, and the regional manager comes and says, "Well, we got to get creative
Mm.
in order to solve it." And in my mind, like this light bulbs comes up as, "Oh, okay, we got to buy some more caulking and duct tape, right?" Because that's what you gotta do when you don't have the money. So sorry, I went on a tangent here, but I'm very passionate about this, and you're absolutely right. When it comes to why not just doing it, I really wish people will like actually follow with their actions versus just
Mhm.
like just reciting these like buzzwords or buzz quotes, right?
There's several things though that people could. It's not that costly. Well, we do a lot of maintenance recognition, and there's there we could go into that too, but there are some core things the leadership in a group can do that is just, it's not that costly. It's mainly it's talking, it's communication. And I think that that's one of the biggest things is just when I'm kind of surprised when I look around in our industry and I just see the image of our maintenance people. And what I mean by that, and this goes back to your question about Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor blew me away 15 years ago. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, visiting a couple of our properties down there, and I'm with our portfolio director, and we did a property tour of a couple of neighboring Mark Taylor sites. I'd never seen a Mark Taylor site before. And one of the best things, if no one else, if you're not if making time to go and tour competitors, if you're in a maintenance role and you're not going out and making time to tour competitors, please do. You will learn so much. It is so, you will walk away, mark my words, you'll walk away going, this was so much, this is time well spent. I learned so much. So anyway, I visited a couple of Mark Taylor sites and I was floored. I noticed several things right off the bat. All their technicians had matching uniforms. All their technicians tucked their shirts in. All their technicians were exceptionally clean and well dressed, like right off the bat. I noticed this within 10 minutes of being on any of their properties. All of their technicians waved to me and smiled. They didn't ignore me. They weren't smoking at the curb. They didn't, drive by at 10 miles an hour in the golf cart and, just ignore me like I don't exist. They all made a point. They didn't know me. I'm, I've never visited their property before. I'm a prospect. They all made a point to smile and wave at me. And I knew after visiting a couple of their properties that this was a top down culture thing. This was not just one property doing this. I saw it more than once. And I was floored. I was like, I felt special. I liked it. I was so impressed. The look. And I came home and I was like, we are totally doing this wrong. Our dress code policy was half a page or something at the time, and not heavily enforced by me. And I remember, yeah, it took some effort and some cheerleading on my part, but put together an entirely new dress code policy that we still have in place today. It includes khaki pants and khaki shorts. Shirts are tucked in at all times. We all wear the same, we all have the same image. And there's several reasons for that. And one of the reasons is this topic of maintenance as your brand. So if you think about it, if I'm a resident, if I'm a prospect, I don't know that you're Adrian and I don't know that you're Nick. I don't need to know that. All I need to know is what your role is. And when I see you going around the property, if I see your look and it's been explained to me that that's Adrian, he's the maintenance supervisor here, or he's the maintenance technician here. And then I see more people that look in the same uniform, the same look. I understand now what they're doing. I don't have to guess who the guy is with the untucked dark shirt or whatever non-logoed shirt or whatever it is with paint all over. We've all seen the look that happens so much in our industry. And I think that it does such a disservice to the skill set that's underneath that shirt. And I'm just shocked at the apprehension by so many maintenance people to dress better, to dress the part, to improve our image so that we can, before that someone opens the door and greets us, that they judge us fairly. Because I think it's we're doing ourselves a disservice. That's one of the very first things right off the bat. Doesn't cost hardly anything. Is require your people to look better, and you'll be shocked at how much your team will actually like it. They won't like it at first, but as they go through it, it becomes they become very proud of it. So that's just one thing. You can tell I'm passionate about this part.
Well, I love your passion about it. I also love that you share very honestly that you looked at what you were doing, and compared to this guys, like we're not doing much. Like we
Yeah.
really got to do better. Like you held yourself accountable, you made changes, you affect change, right, within your organization, which is incredible, which is absolutely incredible. I'm glad you had the opportunity to share. Now, I want to ask you, mention something that things that you do for retention, or like things that are focused on your maintenance personnel. Like, what are some things that you do for recognition, right, for your teams?
So one of the things that this is led by the management teams, they do maintenance recognition throughout the year, and they will get they'll get their maintenance teams different gifts. Those can be they're maintenance themed gifts. Recently, there was a group that got like the heated vests, because we're going into wintertime. There was in the summertime, there was a group that got the cooling neck towels and some fun hats. I think they got some of the little fan thing, the little neck fans, and like just little things that go along with what we do. It's kind of like themed with what we do, but just in a thank you kind of way. Not necessarily a pizza party and not necessarily a gift card. That was one of the things when we spoke about it, about what could they do for the maintenance teams. No more trying to not we've had enough pizza parties, and gift cards are fine, but the problem is within 2 days it's forgotten. It's like it goes into a drawer, or we used it on something, we don't remember what we even bought with it. We were trying to do something that was like, when you look at this thing, it reminds you of the thank you. It reminds you of the appreciation. So those are done all throughout the year. We celebrate years of service. So as a company, our company does, as you've been here longer, you get years of service celebrations. We do quarterly years of service, birthday celebrations, all kinds of different things like that. So
I love the fact that you kindly mentioned that you're not a fan of the pizza parties. It's one of the laziest ways the management could say or pretend that we care about our people. It's something that you could buy, one of the cheapest foods that's out there, and in a very lazy way you could like pick like 2 3 combinations. You don't even have to take the time to ask your employees like what they want. You're gonna get a combination of like 3 or 4 pies, spread
yeah,
them around the team, and you just think we just did maintenance appreciation. And I wanted to say that this is one of the most hated things by the maintenance community. All the groups, all the platforms that I'm going to, this is kind of like the joke of the day, right?
yeah,
When the anti-recognition gesture, it's your pizza party, and I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, because there's zero thought put into it, and it's just a very lazy, very cheap way to just say, to check a box and to just
yeah.
tell you, to say louder than the words, we don't really care about you. We just check a box right here, and here's your pizza, and that's your
I
recognition.
know. I know. I think it's, in a way, it's almost damaging. Yeah. It's just, I agree very much. So
Nick, this was a great conversation, which I truly enjoy, and I hope to continue it in person soon in 2026. As we wrap up this conversation, for the record here, right, we're not going to publish this episode until 2026, but it's December 22nd, right, right before Christmas. What are some things that get you excited about 2026?
I think that one of the things is that our industry has been historically a bit slow to advance and be open-minded to change and trying new things and moving into newer things. And while you heard me talk about, I haven't been as in touch with AI and all that side of things, but one of the things that I would say I I'm excited for is the future of maintenance, specifically on the software front, including the AI side. But for even our industry as a whole, I think that we seem to be more open to advancing, and specifically with maintenance. One of the things that I think we're seeing the software improvements so much more today than I've ever seen in my time in the industry. And it excites me because it gives us so much better ability to measure, and so with the measuring, we can improve. And so I'm just excited. I'm excited to see where we go with that. I'm excited to see what happens with the industry. And I think it's a lot of fun. I love it. And I just look forward to seeing what's next.
Nick, once again, appreciate have you on. I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope to run into you more than once next year, my friend, and hopefully we get an opportunity to do something in person as well.
Same. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.